Hey everybody, it's Josh with Crashing the Pearly Gates, back again with my favorite prospect guru, Taylor Blake Ward. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Jeff. How you doing?
Well, better than the Angels, I guess. We are headed towards, what will this be, 8 or 9 years in a row without the playoffs and some obvious holes in the roster. You, looking at the minor leagues, do you see anybody here? Let's go position group by position group. Do you see any of the prospects that might be able to join the Angels in the starting rotation next year and help them win?
Next year, yeah, I think you have internal help with Reed Detmers. I think Sam Bachman is close, even though he hasn't been able to pitch much this year. I don't know about rotation help as much with Bachman. I think he's going to be a reliever. Kai Bush does look like he is definitely on track to kind of be a part of the depth chart next year. So I think those are the guys you're looking at is Detmers and Kai Bush, particularly if you're not looking at Detmers. You're going to have Griffin Canning back at some point, and what version of him are you going to get? I would actually really like to see him in almost a high leverage position in the bullpen. Chris Rodriguez obviously has been brought up as a reliever, but I think the long term goal for them was to make him a starter. So you do have some internal options, mostly the obvious ones between Griffin Canning and Reed Detmers, but I think you can definitely look at Kai Bush as an option for next year and be pretty excited about it. I think that there's some upside there, and as much as I'd like to see him develop, he might be a necessity coming into 2023.
Nice. And the guy I've interviewed a few times, I always kind of get a soft spot for the guys that come on with me. Davis Daniel, do you think he fits as maybe a guy who shuffles between Salt Lake and the Angels back end type depth?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that that's a guy that would be taking the shuttle, the shuttle to Utah and back, but definitely a guy that fits into the back end of a rotation. I'm not so sure he's going to give you, 200 innings and five WAR and all-star quality things, but definitely a guy that does fit the role of a rotation member that gives you some bulk innings. Even another guy that would do really well moving to the bullpen and being a bullpen piece.
Okay. Now, do we have anybody on the farm that you haven't mentioned, like any of the straight bullpen guys? I have a major prospect crush on Luke Murphy when he was drafted. I thought he would be a fast rising arm. I know some of the guys drafted last year had bullpen experience, like Silseth. Do you think we have any help down there for the bullpen next year?
Yeah, you mentioned Silseth. I forgot to mention him. I think that right now, seeing what he's doing, hardly a year removed from college, is astonishing. I really didn't expect this. I really, really didn't expect him to be up this year. But the fact that he's able to compete at the major league level, and obviously he's had his struggles, but like I said, he's a year removed from college when he was really struggling in college. So for a guy to make that jump is remarkable. So another guy that you could fill in there. You mentioned Luke Murphy. I think Luke Murphy makes a lot of sense in the bullpen. I think that they're doing the right thing in developing him in Double A, keeping him away from Triple A a little bit. You're going to have to find some challenges, and I think he's a guy that's going to have to find those challenges at some point. But definitely a guy that is finding success, finding another breaking ball that's really kind of helping him a little bit. Um, Maybe a guy like Coleman Crow. He's so young, and it's tough to really say that he's going to be up next year. But for him to be so young and doing what he's doing in Double A, Southern League Pitcher of the Month for June, definitely a guy that's on my radar is an interesting guy. I've got a Griffin Jacks comp on him, and I think that Griffin Jacks is kind of similar to Noe Ramirez kind of pitcher. That low angle stuff kind of comes at you at the same angle and then breaks apart. It'd be really interesting to see if Coleman Crow is an option next year. I would really like to see that. Also, maybe you want to keep him starting, get that sinker going, and have him be a sinker ball pitcher that kind of goes into pitching to contact and as a starter for you. You have the obvious ones: Jose Marte, Elvis Peguero, big arms that have been up and down this year. Ollie Ortega, maybe not a prospect anymore, but another guy that's kind of just coming into his own. And you have a few young relievers that are in that mid reliever core, not so much as a high leverage guys, Wance, Warren, guys like that. But trying to think, there is a guy I really like, and I'm not saying next year, but I really like Ryan Costiu. I really like him. I think the slider and fastball package is Gonna work as a mid relief arm. Like I said, I don't know about next year so much because he is in high A still, but definitely a guy that's on my radar as a potential bullpen member. Brett Carey interests me. I wasn't so high on him going into the season, and then seeing him, I was astonished. I couldn't believe how interesting he is with kind of a minimal arsenal. So those are kind of the guys. I definitely Brett Carey has impressed me mightily. Whatever the numbers are, I know he's got like a 4 ERA right now in Double A, but definitely a guy that really intrigues me. So for kind of the under the radar guys, Brett Carey and Ryan Costiu, and I don't know about next year, but down the road.
Down the road. Yeah, I really, from a distance, I've really enjoyed following the Trash Pandas this year. I think obviously the on-field success, winning the first part of their division, but hosting the Negro League nights, working with the kids, all that stuff. I think it's a really good organization. But yeah, I'm with you. I hate our AAA park being almost 6,000 feet higher in elevation than our AA and our major league parks. It is just, it's got to be a big reason why we have so many problems developing pitching. I mean, it's unbelievably bad.
There's some arguments to be made there, but I also think you have to go through your struggles. And I think for a pitcher in particular, you really have to find a way to pitch in different atmospheres. So I actually kind of like it. Also, I'm a guy that lives at 6,000 feet, so I'm a little bit biased, and I love Salt Lake City, one of my favorite cities in the United
It's
States.
nothing against Salt Lake City. Just
No.
if I'm working on a slider and my slider breaks 3 inches less at AAA than it did at AA and at the major league level.
But that's a thing that you've got to learn is when your slider is per se off, even if you're throwing it right. So I actually like that they have a challenging part of their development. Obviously, I'm not going to look into the numbers as mightily when it comes to Salt Lake, but you could say the same thing about Pasco, Washington, with High A at Tri City. Is it's another place where the ball dies. It's almost the opposite of Salt Lake. And looking at offensive numbers there, I kind of throw him out a little bit. A guy that's hitting 250 with a 310 on base percentage is actually somewhat interesting. So the park factors are always going to play. Nothing's perfect. I think that one team that did really well with that is the Chicago White Sox, putting all their affiliates within like a 100-mile gap of each other. But outside of that, yeah, there are definitely going to be questions every time you look at performance numbers from High A or Triple A. Even back in the California League, when High Desert and Lancaster were in the league, you had your questions about that. So I like that they do have to go through their struggles and learn how to work with things that may not be working for them as well. As long as they don't rely on that and get to the Triple A or Major League level with that kind of mentality where we've got to work around things. But I don't mind it personally.
I can respect that opinion. You stated it well. So continuing on the road, we might have some rotation help next year. We've got plenty of guys who could pop in and out of the bullpen next year. Outfield wise, it seems like it's Joe Adell or bust down on the farm right now, at least for the foreseeable future. Is that how you see it?
Within reason, I think that Jordan Adams has, despite kind of a lackluster performance at High A, I think he's a very interesting piece. And it's still for him, I was talking to someone the other day, when you watch him in BP, you watch the raw talent. He's very, very skilled, but it's taking that raw talent and putting it into game, and he's still working on that. The in-game Jordan Adams, as opposed to the tool set of Jordan Adams, is very different. But once he figures it out, I think there's a lot of upside there, and I think if he figures it out quick, he could be an option to be a fourth outfielder coming next year, late in the season, very late in the season. I think you're looking more at 2024. Orlando Martinez, still very interesting. He had his struggles in Salt Lake, no doubt about that, and he's dealing with an injury right now. But another guy that I find very interesting is Orlando Martinez. And then you start looking around, and you do have questions, and I feel like I know the Angels won't address it in the first round this year, or at least 99% sure they won't address it in the first round this year. But the outfield depth of the Angels organization is starting to look a little dreary, and you're going to want to bring in some guys. Alex Ramirez is interesting. Deshaun Knowles is very interesting. But at the same time, they're very far away. So bringing in a college outfielder, I think, would really assist your farm system going down the road, and maybe in the third round is a good place to kind of attack that.
Yeah, Deshaun Knowles has been interesting for about 4 years now, and he doesn't seem to be all that much closer. I like Deshaun, but yeah. And then as far as the infield goes, everybody there is at least 2, maybe 3 years away. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree definitely. I mean, Jeremiah Jackson has been uh, remarkably different than what we've seen in the past. The strikeout rates are down. His swing looks very balanced, and he's not as caught flat-footed or flying open as much as he used to be. So Jeremiah Jackson really interests me. I'm kind of waiting until after the draft to kind of put together a few things, but Jeremiah Jackson has a very good shot to be the top prospect in this organization at the moment. I really like his upside. I think that if he can figure things out, he has Trevor Story and Willie Adames kind of upside to be that everyday starting shortstop. I think he can also stick at shortstop. So I really do like Jeremiah Jackson. I think he's closer than we might think to the major league level. You still definitely don't want to rush him, and I think there's some interesting things there. But he like you said, 2 years, but definitely an interesting guy. Otto Vera and Adrian Placencia are doing their thing down in Low A, and I know that the numbers for Arrow Vera aren't as pretty as you'd want them to be, but he's a very good baseball player. Very interesting, very good baseball player. Mikey Stefanik is up with the club right now, who, your expectations, because he's been hitting 350 most of his minor league professional career. You got to lower those expectations, but he's definitely an interesting case of being an offensive productive player. Denzer Guzman very far away, and we talking outfield. Rainy De Jesus is interesting. Nelson Rada is very interesting, but they're 4 years away with ease, same as Guzman. So, yeah, there's some interesting guys, no doubt about that. And I would definitely but I would be looking to Jeremiah Jackson as one of the top figures in the organization and one of the key assets, maybe even at the trade deadline. You don't want to lose prospects, but right now with where the Angels are, if they feel like they can compete with this roster, which is questionable, but if they feel like they can compete, I think he is one of your primary trade chips.
Yeah, he's kind of separated himself from that group. There was him, Vera, Kyron Paris. There was kind of about 2, 3 years ago, there was this little group of infielders, and various people, handicap different ones as which one was going to be the guy. And I know my lane, man. That's not me. I figured I'd just sit back and see what happens. And yeah, it's been Jackson. He's definitely separated himself there. You did mention the trade deadline. I'm more of the opinion of selling and accumulating assets, but realistically, outside of Jeremiah Jackson, who do you think the Angels' key chips might be if they're looking to maybe land a MLB level infielder for the next 3 or 4 years, or maybe a cost controlled pitcher for the next 3 or 4 years? I mean, you can kind of sell and buy at the same time, if you know what I
Yeah, it would have to be Joe Adell. You're not going to get anything from this organization that's going to be a long-term fix. You're not going to get a multi-year contract player that's on an entry level or arbitration level contract without sending Joe Adell in the deal. As much as we like the Angels organization, the Angels prospects, this organization is still probably in the bottom tier, bottom third of the league when it comes to farm depth and farm talent. So you don't have a whole lot of trade chips. So if you're looking for a high quality piece that's going to be here for multiple years that you view as not a Jose Iglesias kind of level guy, you're looking at Luis Castillo. That's just the common
mean?
name. Frankie Montas, Luis Castillo, right? It's going to involve Joe Adell, no matter what the case is on that. When you're looking for that kind of talent level when it comes to the Angels organization, I agree with you though. I think that where the Angels are the next 2-3 weeks here is going to be really interesting to see whether or not the Angels are potential playoff contenders. Realistically, you just have to get there. The playoffs can be a big opening, and all kinds of things happen in the playoffs. So you really just have to get there. It's whether or not the Angels are capable of doing so. I think we saw what they were when they were healthy at the start of the year. Losing Anthony Rendon is a huge hit. And I'm with you. I think that they should be looking to move some pieces. Michael Lorenzen and Noah Syndergaard and multiple other guys along those lines. But I think that if they are looking for something to bring in that's going to really change, move the needle for them, it's going to include Joe Adell.
Yeah, I've actually been drawing a little bit of heat because I've been suggesting we should trade your namesake, Taylor Ward, as both the Dodgers and Padres
How dare
need
you? How
outfield
dare you?
help. Hey, he's 29. He's never played at this level before. I'm a big fan of selling high. Although I probably should have done that with some of my stocks about 3 months ago. But yeah, you got the Dodgers are looking for outfield help. The Padres are looking for outfield help. The Phillies are looking for lots of teams are looking for outfield help. And quite frankly, I can see spending the money on a Jock Peterson or an Andrew Benintendi or something like that next year to fill a right field hole. But it's going to cost a heck of a lot more to get a maybe a Mackenzie Gore type pitcher, a Jake Cronenworth type second baseman, a Gavin Lux, a Miller, the Dodgers pitcher, somebody like that. But I highly doubt, knowing Artie Moreno, that we do a full bill breakdown. Anyway, coming into the draft, you talked about that earlier. Does Perry draft his 21st consecutive pitcher in the first round?
I believe so. Yeah, definitely. I mean, all signs are pointing that direction. The organization, people I've spoken to in the organization believe that's the direction they're going. Everyone I've talked to believes that's the direction they're going. It's just depending who it's going to be. The Angels have a good chance of being one of the first teams, if not the first team, to take a arm off the board this year. So they're going to have their pick of quite a few arms. There's only a handful or less teams ahead of them, so you're really taking the arm that you want. I think that Gabriel Hughes of Gonzaga is one of the front runners here.
That's what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah, I had him in my mock draft. My most recent mock draft. We're a week and some out. So I think that that's kind of what you're looking at is going to be maybe a college arm like that. I think it's going to be either Gabriel Hughes or Justin Campbell out of Oklahoma State. They could go the prep route with Brandon Barrera, who I'd butcher that at some point. Robbie Snelling out of Nevada and the Vegas area is getting some traction. I think that, Brock Porter is probably the most interesting arm right now out of Michigan. But I think if they were going to go that route, I think they would change some options because Brock is 19 and there is a guy whose name is Dylan Lesko. Very interesting. Comes from Buford High School in Georgia, same program as Brandon Marsh. And he was recognized the best pitcher in this draft until he had Tommy John. And when you look at things kind of on an open perspective, none of these guys that they're planning on taking likely are going to pitch this year unless it's instructional league, and that includes the college arms. You don't expect these college arms have thrown 100+ innings, so they're essentially shut down. So what's the difference between taking that and taking a guy that has Tommy John on his record? One guy that's really interesting, and I keep coming back to it, and I don't believe they would, but there is an option that Kumar Rocker could be that pick coming up. He's getting traction in that range, so there is a lot of interest as to whether Kumar Rocker could be one of the Angels draft picks.
That would be interesting to say the least. Definitely would get the headlines from the draft. Other couple of things that were out. I've seen Susac and Jung both being available when the Angels pick in a couple of mock drafts. Do you think Susac sticks at catcher? And it'd be pretty tempting to take Jung's bat. I mean, if he was available on the board, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the Angels will. Susac, I do think, does stay behind the plate. I do have questions about the bat, but that's going to kind of come with every catcher. I think he has kind of Travis d'Arnaud-esque kind of game to him. And when it comes to Jace Young, I don't think the Angels are going to go with a bat in the first round. I think you're going to be looking at the third round for that, and at that point, it's totally wide open. I mean, I have my personal favorites, of course, but all kinds of things change. I don't see them taking a bat in the first round, but if they did, I wouldn't be surprised if it was someone like Susac.
Nice. All right. And then I need to let you go. I know you've got other things to do, and I'm actually supposed to be working right now. So I did wrap up your book, In Search of Millionaires. Really good book. I know you're too cool to plug your own stuff, so I will do it for you. and I'll put a link in here. That was a lot of fun, man. Do you have any plans on writing another one anytime soon?
Well, uh, kinda. No, nothing on record. I have, you always have creative ideas, right? Everyone has creative ideas, and for the last few months, I've had this creative idea of possibly doing something in the work of non-fictional nonfiction, if that makes sense. Taking real stories but fictionalizing them and making them baseball stories, such as in the book In Search of Millionaires that I wrote for Bob Fontaine, we talk about Russia and the program they tried to build there that didn't pan out, but the kids that they brought over, telling the story of a Russian baseball player and having that story told through maybe a fictionalized tale, or even like one of my inspirations for any creative ideas is the movie Sugar. And if you haven't seen it, it's about a Dominican kid who comes stateside and the struggles that he deals with. It's It's one of my favorite baseball movies. I think it's one of the most realistic baseball movies out there. But those are the kind of things that I feel like need to be told. And you can always write articles about it, but if you can put together a piece of 20 storylines of these guys that are dealing through things that the guys deal with in the minor leagues, in professional baseball, or just baseball in general. I've always had that creative mindset to possibly do something like that. So the answer is no. I'm not planning on doing another book soon. But there are ideas, and I would love to possibly get back to it and do another one. It'd be very interesting to do. I had a lot of fun the first time.
Nice. Well, I'll read the next one. I'll put a link in for this one in the interview. Thanks, Taylor, and we'll catch up with you maybe later on in the season after the draft. Okay.
You got it, buddy.